Hello and welcome to Ames in Focus, the podcast where we highlight the people and policies shaping our community. I'm Bill Gebhart with Communications and Outreach at the City of Ames, and today we're talking building codes. And before anyone panics, that actually matters more than you might think. These updates affect homeowners, contractors, and anyone thinking about building, remodeling, or finally tackling that backyard project. Joining me today is Scott McCambridge, the city's assistant building official. Scott, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Bill. Happy to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you. But since this is your first time with us, we do this with all of our first-time guests. How'd you get to Ames, and what led you into the building code and inspection world?
Yeah, so I grew up in Boone, just west of town here. I started my career in the construction industry, working out in the field. I decided I kind of want to get out of the field, so I moved on to an inspection position. I actually started my career in eastern Iowa, in Johnson County, and then came back to be relocated closer to family and started working in Ames.
So for those of us that may not know, what does an assistant building official do?
I'm sure it varies based off jurisdiction, but here in Ames, so we have a building official and an assistant building official, and then our division is called the inspection division. So we're separated out. We have a rental housing program, a neighborhoods code enforcement, and then we have our construction division. So I manage the day-to-day operations of the construction side, and then my job in particular, I focus more on the pre-construction side, doing design review, helping people work through the application process, understanding the permit process.
And so at the City of Ames, and I guess I'm not sure if it's like this everywhere, I mean, the inspections division is technically a part of the fire department?
It's not like that everywhere. So it used to be like that at the state level. They recently changed a couple years ago where they took them out of the fire marshal's office at the state level. But I think that's kind of how Ames started with that. But Ames is one of the very few, at least in Iowa, that I know of that's actually vested under the fire department.
That's still that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the city is working on adopting some updated building codes. So at a real high level, can you tell me what's changing?
So we are updating to the 2024 International Code Standards and the 2023 NEC. So for the plumbing, electrical, and mechanical code, we have to adopt what the state adopts. And they're changing to the 24 or the 23 NEC, which is the National Electric Code. And then for the building code itself, we can elect to adopt what we want. We're currently on the 2015, but what we try to do in the past is we try to mimic what the state does for consistency. And the state just recently adopted the 24 building codes. So we're going to try to follow along with that.
And so that sounds like, I mean, so you're saying we are currently on the 2015 and we're getting ready to go to 24 or 23, depending on which part you're talking about.
Yep.
Is that how often building codes are updated?
So they're on a cycle of every 3 years they're updated.
Okay.
There's a published building code that comes out every 3 years from the International Code Council. We have not adopted a new building code for a while. So we've actually skipped 3 code cycles, which is a big jump.
But we are trying to stay in line with the state of Iowa.
Exactly.
And so the state of Iowa also hasn't adopted new ones until just recently.
Exactly. They were just recently on the 2015, and then at the beginning of this year, they adopted the 24.
So why do we update the codes at all? I know we're trying to stay with the state, but why is the state doing this? Why are we all updating these new codes? Does it have benefits to residents? To who? What's the point?
Sure. I mean, safety is the number one priority, right? So we learn lessons in the construction industry over past practices or emergency events that have happened and how we can update codes to help people evacuate buildings. I would say consistency is a big thing. We want to stay aligned with the state. So that way, if you're working in at Iowa State University where the state has jurisdiction, or if you're working here in Ames, it's a similar process. The other thing too is the construction industry is always evolving, right? So there's materials back from 2015 or before that weren't available that are now. And so we want those to be implemented in the code so we can be consistent in that matter. The other big thing the really big reason that we update building codes is it helps out at what's called our ISO rating, which is the Insurance Services Organization. There's a lot of factors that go into that, but if we're on newer building code cycles, it helps with insurance rates throughout the city.
And so the point of changing it is, one, the new materials. That makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. Things are being built today out of materials that didn't even exist not that long ago,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
We're always changing. And so, and then also that consistency. Mm-hmm. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So let's do this kind of a fun way. I'm going to throw some projects at you, and I want you to tell me permit, no permit, what's been changed, that sort of thing. Okay.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Let's go with a back deck.
Yes, most of the time that is required. The only time it's not required to have a permit is if it's completely detached from the house and if it's under 200 square feet.
Okay.
So most of the time a back deck would be required.
So if it's attached to the house, requires a permit, or and then even if it's detached, it has to be pretty small to not require a permit. Yep. Okay. How about if I'm replacing my kitchen cabinets?
More than likely, no. The only time that would be required is if, let's say you consider your cabinetry to be like a kitchen island that maybe you're going to install a sink in, or if you're moving any plumbing and electrical, most of the time a permit's required. But if you're just doing cabinetry or finished work, no permit's required.
Okay. How about a small backyard shed?
Yeah, that kind of goes along the line with the deck project we talked about. So if it's under 200 square feet, no permit is required. The biggest thing with sheds is to make sure that they're not in any easements or especially any drainage easements where water is going to be flowing through. That could cause a problem if you don't want them to float away.
Okay, and depending on the size then would depend on whether or not there's a permit needed. Okay, what if I'm replacing windows in my house?
No, just window replacements does not require a permit.
Okay. How about if I'm painting my house or I'm doing new flooring, new countertops, anything like that?
Nope, that kind of falls along with finish work is what we call it. No permits required for that.
Okay, well, speaking of finish work, what if I'm finishing my entire basement?
Oh, yes, that's a little bit different. So if you're, let's say your basement's completely unfinished, now you're constructing some stud walls for rooms, adding some bedrooms, a permit is definitely
and probably putting electrical in and perhaps plumbing, depending on what your basement's set up for.
Exactly.
So that would all make sense. Okay, so there's definitely times you need a permit. There's definitely times you don't. A lot of it probably depends on size of project and things like that. So, but if it involves structure, wiring, plumbing, or hey, let's knock this wall out, probably should give you guys a call.
Yeah, and when in doubt, please give us a call. So that's like I mentioned before, my job is pre-construction and helping people understand the permit process. I'm always available to talk through whether or not permit is required. And worst case scenario, go ahead and apply for the permit. And if you apply for something that doesn't need a permit, we will tell you it doesn't need a permit. So we're not just taking stuff just because we want to, right? I mean, we want to be looking at the work that requires a permit.
Yeah, so definitely very helpful. So talking about these new codes, let's touch on a few homeowner impact updates. So if someone pulls a permit for a certain remodel work, they may now need to bring smoke and carbon monoxide alarms to current standards. Why is that important?
Yeah, so that's the current proposal that we'll take to City Council. So smoke and carbon monoxide alarms are proven to be effective and helping save lives in the house, especially, think about when you're sleeping and your smoke detectors go off. One of the big components with smoke and CO alarms is they have to be what's called interconnected. So if I have a fire, let's say that's starting in the mechanical room of my basement and my smoke detector in the basement picks up that smoke, well, I'm sleeping up on let's say the second level. So I'm 2 stories removed from that. Those smoke and CO detectors will be interconnected. So when the ones that activate on the basement, they trigger the ones on the second floor. So I can actually hear the alarm.
So the whole house is being alarmed at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's important to kind of bring that up to code. A lot of older homes either didn't have smoke alarms or they weren't interconnected. So the current proposal for the building code change is to anytime you're doing work that requires a building permit in your house, that you have to update your smoke and CO alarms as per new construction. So as the location per new construction.
And that's absolutely that safety factor that you were talking about earlier too. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the paramount of these updates as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, so there's also some more fire protection requirements for certain floor assemblies. So what problem is that solving?
Yeah, so this is on the residential side. So in construction nowadays, we're using what we call lightweight materials for floor construction. So it's like an engineered I-joist or an engineered floor truss, which has these really, I'll call them flimsy metal gussets to kind of keep the members together. They're just really weak when they're exposed to heat. So what the code requires is a protection rating underneath of the floor assembly. So it'd be on the ceiling side of the basement. And that's required when your basement's not finished. So it's at a minimum a 1/2-inch drywall. It's not actually a rated assembly, what we determined in the commercial code. But it's at least a minimum level of protection to kind of help those floor systems last a little bit longer in those fire events. So that way people have time to get out.
Yeah, without it collapsing, right? Because they're just flimsy in the heat.
Yep.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So decks are always popular names, especially if the weather ever warms up, right? So are there any notable updates there that homeowners should know about?
Yeah, so the deck portion of the residential code has changed quite a bit since 2015. So they've implemented some new tables. So somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience can kind of input their information for their deck into those tables, and it spits out the structural design, whether that's footing size, gives you spans for beams and joists, all that.
Yeah, so it gives you the information you need. So people that don't have a lot of experience with a deck will have the measurements and what they need to use.
They try to make it a little bit foolproof. I mean, if you're used to the older tables, it's going to be a little confusing because they look different. But in general, it's the same concept.
Okay. So let's talk about electrical code, right? So right now it's expanding GFCI protection. So it includes appliances like dishwashers and sump pumps. What's the reason for that?
Yeah, so the electrical code is just going to keep expanding GFCI and which is ground fault circuit interruption, and then also arc fault circuit interruption. So it's going to keep expanding. Eventually, it'll be pretty much everything in the home, but they're kind of go piece by piece adding it into the code. So there are some new things with sump pumps and dishwashers.
And so because those are the outlets you typically see in your kitchen, right? That have kind of the button in the middle so that they can trigger and turn off should they get wet or something like that happens.
Exactly. And there's also breakers that are protected as well for GFCI and AFCI protection. There's even dual function breakers, which is something that, wasn't around a long time ago, but so it might not look any different to you as the homeowner if you don't have any electrical knowledge, but it's protected in some way or another, either at the receptacle or at the panel.
And so it's expanding this time, and likely we're going to see it continue to expand just because of that security that provides.
More than likely, yeah.
Okay. So also I saw that kitchen island outlets can't go on the side of the island anymore.
Yeah, so that was a change. I don't know if it was last cycle or the cycle before, but island outlets or island receptacles can't go on the side. So they've determined that when you plug in, let's say you've got a crock pot on top of your island, you plug it into the receptacle on the side, kids were pulling those cords and, maybe pulling that appliance off the island. And obviously that's a hazard. So those island receptacles either need to go on top of the counter or above the counter. And then one change with this 2023 National Electric Code is that those receptacles aren't required anymore. So if you don't want to put a receptacle in your kitchen island because you spent a bunch of money on this nice marble slab or whatever it might be, you don't want to cut a hole in that, you don't have to put the receptacle in there. You just have to install some sort of provision for a future receptacle. Let's say you want to put one in later down the road or the next homeowner, whoever that may be. So that usually looks like a junction box underneath the cabinet.
Just ready for somebody else to cut the hole in. And
exactly. Yeah. It's just to make it easy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Those are some changes. So the commercial side, accessibility clearances are increasing slightly. So what should business owners keep in mind about that?
Yeah. So in 2021 building code, which the city did not adopt, there was a new accessibility standard that was printed. It was the 2017 version versus the old one, which is the 2009. So that increased a lot of clearance sizes for accessibility. So accessibility, people also call it ADA requirements. Yep. So at the city level, we do not enforce ADA. We're not allowed to. That's at the state level. So the ADA itself hasn't changed, but what we enforce is the International Code Council standard for accessibility, which is linked up with the building code, and that has increased a little bit. So it's actually slightly above and beyond the minimum ADA requirement.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I feel like in the new codes it said 6 inches more. Is that about right?
That's kind of there's a lot of changes when it comes to dimensional clearances, but in general, everything's kind of increasing by about 6 inches. For again, that's your clear floor space. So you think about the radius it takes to turn like a wheelchair around. That's increased. It used to be a 60-inch diameter circle. Now it's a 66-inch diameter circle.
Yeah. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but it does make a big difference, especially for those people that need those clearances.
Yep. And if you're used to using the old one, which we used for quite a while, it's just learning those new dimensions and accommodating that in the
Absolutely.
design.
So what's the expected timeline for adoption of these new codes? And so how should contractors or anyone looking to do work in their house or whatever, how should they prepare for that? Yeah,
so we're anticipating an enforcement date of about September 1st.
Okay.
So what we've done a couple of outreach sessions, just like this podcast we're doing here. We've talked to Ames home builders. We've just hosted some open houses for people to come and just ask questions. We just took these proposals to the Building Board of Appeals. And so then they have to approve our proposals and before we take it to council. So then we'll take it to council. There'll be at least 3 council meetings on it where there'll be public input or a public input session where people can come and voice their opinion on that. And then once council approves it, we'll have some sort of a grace period. It kind of depends on how long it takes for this process to happen, but we're looking at an enforcement date of September 1st, and that lines up with what the state is doing as well.
Okay. So if residents or contractors have questions about these codes or updates or just the building codes in general, what's the best way for them to get their questions answered? Yeah,
so our website has lots of information. It also has contact information for myself or just our main inspections phone line or email address. So ask questions by either calling or emailing. Probably me is the best course of action. You can also ask our inspectors. Let's say you're a contractor that's already working out in the field and you got some questions for them. They can help you out as much as they can.
And so on the city website, cityofames.org, if you went to departments, there's a page for inspections. Starting there is a great place to start getting some of those things answered.
Absolutely.
As well as there's contacts for your office and other people in your office as well.
Absolutely. And when we do adopt these new codes, we'll have our local amendments posted on the website as well too. And then always the International Code is a free resource that you can look up online. So if you're a contractor that does, residential construction and you just want to Google the 2024 International Residential Code, you can look at the free version online at any time.
Absolutely. Because it is that national recommendation. We are just adopting it now, but it's already out there and
exactly.
people can read it.
Yeah, it's not something we made from scratch.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely. That would take a lot of time, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So Scott, something we've been starting to do in our new season of Ames and Focus is a lightning round. It's just something that, real quick answers to some of the things. They sort of relate, they sort of don't, however you want them. But so here's these questions. So what is the most common people say when you show up for an inspection?
Oh, the most common thing they say, well, hopefully it's not a groan or some sort of, that they're upset. But most of the time, 99% of the time they already know we're coming. So it's something that they scheduled. So hopefully they're looking forward to us being there. But.
Good. Okay. Deck or a patio?
Oh, probably deck. That seems like that's all we do around here. So.
Yeah. Okay. So would you prefer an early morning inspection or a late afternoon inspection?
Ooh, I'd say myself, I'd prefer early morning.
Yeah. Are you a morning person?
Sort of, but late afternoon, it just seems like that's too late. If something bad happens, then then I have to fix it that day.
Right, before you go home.
I gotta know about it early.
Yep. Okay. So what is one home safety upgrade that everyone should check out this week?
Sure. So we talked a little bit about it, but smoke and seal alarms, they're one of your biggest safety measures in your home. Sometimes it's really the only safety measure in your home. So I would say making sure that your smoke detector batteries have been replaced, that your smoke detectors are even functioning. They usually have a 10-year life cycle on them, so they have a manufacturer date. So check that. If they're out of date, even if they're functioning, it's something that I would replace myself.
Absolutely. And that 10-year date also makes them easy to forget when that 10 years is up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If it was a couple months, I'd be like, oh, I need to do that. But when it's 10 years, it's like, I don't have to think about that.
Exactly.
Again. Okay, last one. So in one sentence or about one sentence, what are the building codes really about?
I think I can sum it up in one word. It's more about safety than anything. We're not out here trying to, enforce our opinions on how things should be built. We're enforcing the minimum code standard, and it's all about safety.
Okay, safety, one word. So you went even less than a sentence. I like it. So, Scott, thank you so much for being here and for helping us make sense of these new building code updates. So if you have any questions about permits or inspections, visit cityofames.org or contact the inspections division directly. Building codes may not be glamorous, but they're what keep our homes safe, durable, and built to last. Thanks for listening to Ames in Focus, and remember, when in doubt, ask before you build.
Ames in Focus is a City of Ames podcast.